Thank you so much for taking your precious time away from your business to be in Singapore this week, because this is where our team of B1G1 works from. So what I would like to do today, taking this opportunity, is to take you through a journey. And I was asked to talk about this topic today, the power of giving, because what we do at B1G1 is helping businesses make an impact in the world. But then, in order for me to talk about the true power of giving, I need to talk about something else. And what I need to talk about today is this: the power of small. And in order for us to really appreciate the true power of small, we have to first really understand the real meaning of our journey and endeavor. It's about the perspectives that we form and transform through our journey. So when we start running a business or living our own life, we always think where we are getting to is the most important thing. But years later, what we always find out is not really about the destination that really mattered, but it was the shift in our perspectives that truly mattered. So today, we are going to do that together. And I'm going to share my story, but through the story that I share with you, I hope you tap into your own journey, your own story, to really discover the true power of small. When we look around the big world, and it's amazingly beautiful out there, but when we look around, it's so easy to feel overwhelmed, because we are just like the little tiny dot. And just in case you don't have a good eye, I show you, that's the little tiny dot there. That's you, and that's me. We are individually those little tiny dots in the big world doing what we do. And no matter how hard we are trying, it's so easy to feel overwhelmed. There are so many things happening. Things are changing so quickly. But today, with a new set of eyes, we actually going to zoom in to the power of small. Now, let me begin my journey, because I'm somebody who really feels the kind of smallness. And this is how I started. So just in case you need to spot me, that's me. So that's the little tiny dot when I was growing up. In the picture, I'm sitting in front of my grandparents' shop in Tokyo. My parents were very busy. My dad worked so hard during the economic boom in Japan, when everybody was working hard trying to get a better life. So my dad was never home. I hardly ever saw him. When he was at home, he was angry. But the place where I felt really excited and comfortable in was my grandparents' place. They had this tiny family business in Tokyo. I spent all my holidays spending time with them and serving customers or stocking shelves, and being part of that family business let me learn so many amazing things. But I was a very shy child. Even in my own country, speaking my own language, I hardly ever spoke. So if I had to speak up at school, I would be terrified. I couldn't stop shaking my hands if I had to speak up in class. So that was me. But luckily, I had a curiosity. So when I grew up, and looking out, the big world outside of my own community and country, I started to travel. So it was initially very scary, because I didn't speak English, and I lost my ability to communicate totally. And during that time, I was traveling, backpacking, and meeting new people, learning about the new culture, learning new language. I learned so much. But one of the most powerful things I learned during that time was that actually we are the same. When I lost my words, for the first time ever, I started to connect in a real way, because I was no longer trying to be clever or trying to say the right thing, because I didn't have the words. So I had to use whatever the expression I could use to express my thought and feelings. And wherever I was, being vulnerable, when I was in trouble, there were people always coming to help me. So I realized that somehow in this world, we are all the same. We all care about our own family, children. And I started to experience, this amazing world we are part of. But at that time, I also started to see different pictures. Not only pictures, the reality, real children, not even being able to go to school because they are working or they are begging on the street, or people with physical disabilities not having any help and sleeping on the street. In my own country, in my own neighborhood, if kids are not even able to go to school, surely somebody will help. But when I looked around in some of the countries I visited, these people didn't have help. And so I thought, why? But at that time, I felt small. I didn't have the answer, and I decided to just continue. Let go and continue on the journey. So I did. And then when I was back in Japan looking around one day, and then looking at how people were busily walking by in the city, I thought maybe things like businesses and consumerism were the ones causing these issues in the world. So I started to think that way. And then, being a very simplistic person at that time, I thought, if I at least stopped buying things, I wouldn't create any harm. So I moved to countryside of Japan and spent next 2 years trying to create self-sufficient life. So during that time, I learned so many things. Being part of this community of simple people, living life with nature, and taking care of their own environment, and establishing their own life. I learned so much. Another thing that I learned through this in the countryside was to really live with the nature and try to find the cycles of nature. Because in the natural cycles, we have seasons, time, lives, and all those things we need to embrace to create real sustainability. In our own world, too, there are ways to create abundance in a natural way. So let me introduce you to 2 cycles. The first cycle starts with the idea of that you don't have enough, so you need to go and then get something. And as a result of getting that what you wanted, you experience the ownership of that. But then quite often, what happens after that is this, a sense of loss. That the things you really wanted to have doesn't seem to be so important anymore. And you have to go and get it more because you always feel that it's not enough. Another cycle starts with the sense of having. That no matter how much or how little you have, you already recognize that you have something. And you find opportunities to give and share what you have with others. And as a result, you receive what you want more naturally. The first cycle is the cycle of deficiency because the underlying feeling in that cycle is that you never have enough. And the second cycle is the cycle of sufficiency because you experience that you always have something precious, and you continue to do that. And when you are living and creating these cycles in your life and in your business, you naturally attract people who operate in the cycle that you operate in. So that was one of the things I learned from farmers, because farmers always give to the soil. They don't just try to get something short term, but they have that deep understanding of taking care of the environment. So this takes us to contemplate on our thinking in business, because for so many years, in recent years, businesses' focus was to maximize profit, but also maximize profit in the short term. And we started to experience the consequence of that. So what if we could shift our focus to more of the purpose-driven focus? We start with a sense of meaning, the important things that we want to achieve with our business. And then, because it's so important, we find ways to create resources around it so we can do more of what we love and what we believe in. So with that new set of eyes, let me introduce you to a set of numbers that gives you new perspectives about our world. $22 billion is the amount of annual funding that we need to create to give access to basic education to all the children who currently don't have access to basic education. $23 billion is the amount of annual additional funding required to give access to clean water to people who today don't have access to clean water. $30 billion is the amount of annual funding required to give basic nutrition to all the children who currently don't have that access. Now, we are going to the next set of numbers. The first one, $168 billion is the size of publishing industry in the world in annual turnover. $1 trillion is the power of pharmaceutical industry in the world in annual turnover. $568 billion is the size of fast food industry in the world. And that's only fast food. It's not including restaurants or the grocery you get from supermarkets. Imagine all of the things that's happening in our world and in your life. If all this power of businesses is utilized in the right way, we could achieve some of these important things that we need to achieve together. So what I realized after looking at this is that what's missing in the world is not the power for us to make that change, but it's the meaningful connections to link our power to make a difference with the opportunities that allows us to make that difference in a real way. And the picture of bee in the background is an interesting example of this because bees go out to collect nectar from flowers, and automatically every day they pollinate the flower. That results in creation of most of our food supplies in our world. Our businesses go out to create abundance, but then we learn to avoid the simple thing like pollinating our flowers. And as a result, we worry about the sustainability of our children and our world. So in terms of connection, there are so many important moments of connections in my life. And that's me and my daughter, Myra, on my back. So I'm the big one this time. And so at that time, when I held my child for the first time, I experienced this most profound sense of love and connection. And I realized that I would do anything to protect my child, my daughter, and provide opportunities for her to grow up to become a successful and happy individual. But then, at that time, I started to see the faces of other children, the children I saw when I was traveling. And I thought, maybe I should do something. Even though I cannot help everybody, I cannot change the world, but there are lots of kids who don't have a parent like me. So even if I could do just a little more than taking care of my own family, I would do something. So I started my very first business 18 years ago. And that was a food business because I believed in the power of food to bring people together and nourish our lives. So with very little money, I got my first takeaway food shop and started to run this business. And I had my daughter always on my back. Yes, that was in Christchurch. And the business started to grow. Truck drivers are queuing up in front of our shop in 3 months. We tripled the turnover within 6 months. We bought another business. We sold them together, moved to Australia to start a healthy eating food concept. So 5 years into my journey as a business owner, my company was selling packaged gluten-free frozen meal to many of the health food stores and some of the supermarket outlets in Australia in 3 different states. So one day, I was working really hard, like my dad used to do. And then I realized this. Even though I worked so hard, I wasn't achieving what I wanted to do, which was to feed and educate the street kids I saw when I was traveling. And I realized that if I continue with that thinking and always thought about me not being enough, I didn't have enough money, enough time yet. Our business had to grow more. So we were putting all the money back into business to grow. But then I thought, if I continued that way, in 10 or 20 years' time, I would still be doing the same thing and telling myself the same story, just with a bigger business. So the idea of Buy One, Give One came to us. What if, instead of trying to do something big in the future, we just gave one meal for every meal we sold? So that's what we did. That transformed everything, because from that day on, giving and caring became part of our product. At that time, about 7 months later, I started to imagine. Imagine, instead of this idea being just for my business, if any business around the world could do this in their own way. Eventually, I sold my company in Australia and moved to Singapore to start B1G1, Buy One, Give One, as a global giving initiative to help businesses do this. Now, today we have cafes giving access to water for every coffee they sell. We also have fashion brands or online stores educating young girls for every piece of clothing they sell, so that those girls do not get trafficked. Or we have even accountants giving goat for every client they create, so that the goat helps the family to create a sustainable income. Now, I want to show you 3 important things we do. First one is impact, because giving to charity is not difficult today. There are so many opportunities. But what we wanted to do is to make business giving highly impactful and tangible. So today, in B1G1, you can find more than 500 carefully selected projects. And your giving can start from just like 1 cent to give access to water for somebody for a day, or $2 to plant 1 tree. So we do this to create impactful giving. And not only that, we let our members and partners to track their impact. And this is just an example of B1G1 widget that our members can embed on their website. And we let them also track their impact under the Sustainable Development Goals as well. Now, the second thing that's really important is habit, because it's easy to do something once off, but we need to make it a habit to really transform what happened. So in the mobile app, for example, our members can give very easily on the move and can say, every time we complete a project, then we give this, and so on. The third thing is connection. Giving just as a donation is not as meaningful. But when people come together through the real sense of caring and purpose, so many things can transform. So with our community of businesses, we host a Business for Good conference or a study tour to go and visit and experience the impact of project. So we always think about creating sense of connection. And because 100% of the giving that our members make will go to the project. People ask us, so how do you do what you do? So the way we do it is this. We have all of the members contributing a little bit toward the movement fund, which develops the movement and the tools and resources for everybody to use. And that starts from just $1 a day for tiny business. Now, that makes it possible for us to make sure fully 100% of giving will go to the project, and we even top up the credit card charges so that even 1 cent you are giving to an impact will go to create that impact. Today in the community of B1G1, we have more than 2,500 businesses working with us, and those businesses have created 178 million giving impacts. And those impacts are not just the big numbers, it's the smiles being created. And we also track this impact in line with global goals, because then the small businesses working with us will align themselves with what's happening in the world. We are no longer small. But important thing to remember is this. It's the power of small. It's not about just doing big thing. And having the real sense of caring and long-term thinking really is the key to make sure our world will continue to be the beautiful place it is for our children and grandchildren. Mother Teresa once said this: The problem with the world is that we draw our family circle too small. So what if we start to draw our family circle bigger and bigger? So without talking too much, I'd like to share a very quick video to let you experience the power of the B1G1 movement and the family thinking in practice. Today, B1G1 works with more than 2,000 businesses globally. And these businesses are solving different problems and adding value to their customers in their own unique ways. The great news is that we are celebrating a decade of giving and 100 million giving impacts this year. 100 million impact sounds like an impressive number, so it's also easy to overlook the real meaning of this achievement. In the world of B1G1, your giving really matters. We see that each impact is in fact a smile that you create. And these tiny impacts accumulate to really transform lives around the world.
ខ្ញុំមានអ្វីដែលខ្ញុំចង់និយាយទៅហ្វាគឺវាធំទូលំទូលាយព្រោះហ្វាផ្លាស់ប្ដូរជីវិតរបស់ខ្ញុំប៉ុន្តែខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមថាខ្ញុំនឹងអាចជួយអ្វីខ្លះដោយហ្វាដូចសប្តាហ៍ថ្ងៃនេះខ្ញុំអាចជួយ
They've changed my life. I'm 100 times better than I was before. I've gained all my family back, I've gained respect, and I've got a good life now.
I would like to say thank you to teacher, B1G1 team, and all my friends. After my mother passed away, nobody supported me to study. I really say thanks for the scholarship, so I have the chance to study. And I promise that I will try to study to achieve my goal, and I will commit to help my family and all the people in my country. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you so much. And can I see show of hand of those who are B1G1, part of B1G1 businesses? Wow. I don't get to meet you normally, so I'd like to thank you taking this opportunity, because you choosing to be part of this movement allows us to continue the work that we do. Thank you. And thank you so much to the people you work with as well. So please pass our gratitude to your team. And can I see hand of those who are not yet part of B1G1, but are keen to get involved, want to join this movement? Wow, fantastic. Because I'd like to give you something. So if you could just keep the hand up, then some of the team will be handing around this blue card. If you could also take note of this link, and you can use the QR code as well. That's where you can get your account set up. And then, as I said earlier, joining as a small business, start with just $1 a day, easy to do. And 100% of your giving goes to the project that you choose to give to. Now, back to the key message, power of small. We are still that tiny little dot. We haven't grown in the last half an hour. But imagine if you and your business touching lives every day. Through the things you do, you inspired more individuals and businesses to realize that they themselves can be making an impact. Then we together really can transform our world. So the picture that we started with are no longer the pictures of overwhelming problems that we cannot solve, but these are really the opportunities for us to make a difference and to create a smile every second every day and in every way. Thank you so much.